Hello, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Rose, and in this video, I'm going to warn you guys about a new show that's going to be airing tonight. That is, of course, if I can upload this and have it published by tomorrow. It's going to be on the Discovery Channel. Want to warn you about it. Invisible killers. They're going to once again brainwash you to believe in the germ theory of disease, the contagion myth, one of the most difficult myths for most of us to overcome. I understand. Our whole lives are filled with references that make us think that we're catching colds all the time, right? And of course, that's what we're told. And we're going to be reminded once again in this 3-part video series that was 3 years in the making. They went around the world, and they're going to prove to you that we've got these invisible killers that are still plaguing us. And I've been doing videos recently. My last 2 videos are to help you understand how to evaluate evidence, especially at some of the events that happened last century, because they're going to repeat again. And there's 3 main events that killed millions of people. Never forget seeing Bill Gates do a little video on this. I saw it on YouTube, where he was talking about these same 3 events. You know, Bill Gates is a perfect example of how a villain has been turned into a hero. Look at good old Bill Gates wanting to vaccinate the third world countries. Well, you know what? This whole show is going to be warning us about smallpox, because they know most of us don't have the real evidence. Remember, there's 2 versions. The version we've been given about certain things is wrong. So we won't wake up, and history will repeat itself. We're getting close to another pandemic that was caused by the people who rule us. They created that pandemic. The poison was in the vaccines. Now, when you look at smallpox, you realize, if you understand the other version, that it's a disease of filth. Most of our diseases can be put into these 2 main categories: filth outside of our body and filth inside of our body. Remember, most of our diseases is coming from one of 2 things. There's something inside of us that doesn't belong there, or there's something we need inside of us that's not there. So it's based on toxicities and deficiencies. Now, the toxins can come from within, they can come from without. And when we look at conditions like smallpox, measles, these are conditions of filth. And we figured the problem out. We realized it was a plumbing problem. We grew too big. The Industrial Revolution, we moved into cities, we weren't handling our waste matter. If you just type in plumbing and those diseases, you'll find out that was the solution. It wasn't a medical miracle. It was a plumbing solution, which we've seen in the exact opposite when the Roman Empire was conquered in the West and in the East 1,000 years apart. These bozos who like to destroy things, they read The Art of War by Sun Tzu, and you go in there and you destroy the infrastructure. Isn't that interesting? Who becomes our vice president and secretary of defense and stuff? They own companies that will destroy things, and they own companies that build things. Big money maker for them, isn't it? But it's really all about control, is what it is. And the same people who finance both sides of the war are the ones that started this whole pandemic long ago. And they want us to believe in this contagion myth. The disease, the pandemic came when they started vaccinating the soldiers. Now, again, if we look at smallpox, they had compulsory vaccines around the world in the late 1800s, 1870 to 1890 or so. Japan and England and Philippines and in India, they had horrible results as a result of the vaccines. In England, in a 20-year period of time, they had like 165 or 6,000 cases. 30,000 people died, and they were vaccinated. Now, at that same time period in Australia, they didn't have compulsory vaccines. Guess how many people died? 3. 30,000 with the vaccines, 3 without the vaccines. And all the other countries saw the same results, and when they stopped doing the vaccines, the problem went away. Now we know this. This has been known for a long time. And the people who rule the world know this too, and they have deaf ears when it comes to this. I've done a video before sharing that great speech by Dr. Russell Trawl in 1862 at the Smithsonian Institute with over 5,000 people, a lot of politicians. He was addressing them, saying, come on guys, you know, I'm a soldier here, a surgeon in the war, and we see what's happening. Trawl was a natural hygienist, he was a raw foodist, he was into water fasting. When they applied their techniques, the natural hygiene techniques, they didn't lose anybody. They had nurses in there, and they knew not to give them the poisons. As Russell Trawl points out in his speech, the poor kids come down with measles. Why? Because it's a disease of filth. They're out there fighting a war. They're having to poop where they're at. They're living in filth. They come down with measles. What happens? Doctor's going to give you some drugs. Then what happens? You start bleeding into the lungs. They give you some more drugs. Then what happens? You get typhoid. Give you more drugs. Then what happens? You come down with consumption. You die. The drugs are what causes the problem. Same thing with smallpox. The natural hygienists knew that as long as there was no treatment given and they were put on a solid food vacation, the stages of smallpox do not develop into the latter stages. The latter stages are due to the drugs that were given to them. In fact, the drugs, the vaccines that they gave the soldiers in the war, which is how that pandemic started, created symptoms that were way beyond a flu, and it was by design. They're going to do it again. The poison's in the vaccine. Don't get sucked into this contagion myth. There is a contagion element when it comes to the disease. Most of it's just filth. Now, if you're really clean inside and some filth comes around on the outside, it can still cause a problem. Now, I explained that in one of my videos, Healing Secrets Revealed. Check out the description box. I explained there's 4 long-term stages of the disease, and then there's those 2 short-term self-limited diseases. And one of them is like food poisoning. When we get something like that into us, we've got to get rid of it immediately. That's why we got to stop eating. Otherwise, colds and flus, there's no virus that's causing that. There's no bacteria that's causing that. The bacteria, the viruses, that's the consequence of the condition, not the cause of the condition. Colds and flus is what happens when our own lymph system backs up. Remember, our body's nothing but a bunch of cells and 2 fluids. Blood is the kitchen. It feeds the cells. The lymph system is the bathroom. It's a lipid-based, cholesterol-based system to deal with the acid side of chemistry, because when our cells eat, they poop. Everything eats and poops everywhere in nature, and everywhere in nature we have bacteria to eat the poop. We are the same way inside of us. So when our cells eat, they poop out 3 pH, 50,000 times hotter than our blood. We have lymph nodes inside of our lymph system that have bacteria inside them, just like there's bacteria inside a septic tank for the same purpose, to eat up the garbage, the bacteria. So when we do something and our lymph system doesn't get filtered and it backs up, in its wisdom it knows to go to an organ that can exit the body, like the nose and sinus areas. That's the colds and the flus. If it goes into the lungs, it's called pneumonia. Now, Dr. John Tilden, another natural hygiene doctor, saw more pneumonia patients than any doctor in history. Never lost one patient because he knew what was happening. The body was using the lungs as a fontanel to get rid of the waste matter. Just like the natural hygienists in the war knew that the measles would cause other problems. The smallpox causes other problems. So what happens when our lymph system backs up and it says, I got to go out the body somewhere, let's go to the nose and sinus areas. What's coming out is our own waste matter. And if it has, and if there's enough bacteria in there to convert it, it's going to be hot, it's going to burn, your nose is going to be red. If it's went from 3 pH to 6 pH, it's not going to burn as much. But guess what? You're going to need, anyway, more bacteria to eat up the mess. So if there's bacteria at the scene of the crime, they're the consequence of the lymph system backing up using the nose and sinus areas. It isn't the cause of it. And what about a virus? Tricky word, that virus. It's an umbrella term. Just means poison. They've been using that word for thousands of years, and we can call anything a virus, sort of. But the way we think of it, the way we've been tricked into using it, because it was created to save the germ theory has fallen apart. digress here for a moment. The germ theory, Louis Pasteur, that's not even his original theory. He stole that from Béchamp, who abandoned the idea because he knew it was bunk. But Pasteur said, hey, I know how to, we can use this. There's a whole group of people that believe they got to use poisons to heal the body, and they'll buy into this one, the allopathic doctors. So to really understand the thing about virus, you got to understand a little bit about medical history and the role Rockefeller played, one of those psychopaths who, by the way, these are the real invisible killers that I'm going to lead to in a moment. Those are the guys we got to worry about, the guys behind the curtain. But Rockefeller manipulated the medical industry in the early 1900s. The 1910 Flexner Report. At that time, Flexner was hired to go around the country and evaluate all the different types of medical schools. Turned out 2 out of 3 universities were teaching homeopathy. 1 out of 3 were allopathic doctors. Well, Rockefeller said, you know, I can turn this oil into cancer treatment. I need some good salespeople. So he started giving money to give these people an unfair advantage. Gave like $50 million over a 50-year period of time. Pretty much send out goon squads if he had to close down the homeopathic doctors. So now that's all we have is allopathic doctors in America. Well, Rockefeller, the same guy who hired Thomas Rivers. Oh, but John, I already know all about viruses. Well, you know who Thomas Rivers is? He's the father of modern virology, hired by Rockefeller to save the germ theory. So we got these invisible killers out there attacking us. And now we need vaccines to kill them. Vaccines never eradicated anything. And in most cases, all a virus is dead genetic debris when a cell dies. Once again, it's a consequence of the condition. It's not the cause of the condition. Now, dead genetic debris, if we have too much of it, it can cause a problem, especially if you're not very healthy and you got some weak cells. It will cling to weak cells and it will cause a problem. But it isn't something that's attacking us. Oh, it's an invisible killer. The virus, mysterious virus is going to come and get you. That's all so much poppycock, I can't even stand it. I've coached people with hepatitis C. It's gone after 30 days of juices, on a solid food vacation on juices. Hepatitis C, that's all poppycock. There are no viruses that are causing anything. The whole idea that something can come in and attack us and force our cells to obligate reproduction is absurd. It's like having frogs attacking dogs and making the dogs reproduce more frogs. It's ridiculous. They want us to believe in that hokum. And then they're so deceptive, they show us pictures. They say, look at the virus. It's attacking that cell. Well, this is how they get us on all types of evidence. Look at the picture. Look at the films. But what about the narrative? What about the description? You're lying. You're lying. You're lying. That's not a cell being attacked by a virus. That's a macrophage attacking some dead genetic debris. Dead genetic debris doesn't attack something living and then make it reproduce more dead genetic debris. How absurd is that idea? But that's what they want us to believe, is that we have these invisible killers that are to blame. Isn't that a convenient scapegoat? Used to be evil spirits, now the evil bacteria. Oh, now it's the evil viruses. Again, they use that to save the germ theory. And you know, when they first tried out germ warfare, it didn't work. And it never has. The only way they can make it work is when they attach a chemical to the germ. And you see, that's what happens in nature when we have these type of diseases, smallpox, whatever. It's filth. What about malaria? What about these other types of diseases? It's filth carried by a parasite. The mosquitoes carrying the filth. Or the flea and the tick that's on the rat or the mouse is bringing in the filth. It's all filth. Oh, but we can identify the virus. Well, when a cell dies, there's going to be dead genetic debris. Part of the cell is the DNA, the head of the cell, if you want to call it that. And you can identify it. Look, it has the genetic sequence there. Look, it's this type of virus. It's attacking us. Oh, my God, save us, save us, save us. Give us some vaccines. Poppycock, poppycock, poppycock. It's all a lie, folks. It's another way for population control. And people say, well, John, there's just too many of us. No, there's not. We live on an extremely abundant planet. There's two big lies they want us to believe in. That of scarcity and that of the germ theory, the contagion myth. Those are two of the biggest things that I try to help you guys understand when it comes to this knowledge. You got to sit down before fact, empty your cup, look at the other version. A lot of you people who are embracing this virus, poppycock theory, vaccine theory, and you label other people vaccine deniers, you only know one version, and it's all wrong. If you don't understand the disease process, you're totally clueless about all of this. And remember, the people who rule the world, those are the true invisible killers. Wizard of Oz, don't look at the man behind the curtain. Well, how many dang curtains are there? How many layers are there to this onion? And do we really need to know who's behind the last curtain? I don't like pointing fingers and identifying anybody. Although in my last video I just pointed out that, hey, we just found 8,156 behind the curtain people that are part of the shadow government that are protecting the corrupt politicians. Now that's good to know, isn't it? So that we can make sure they can't keep getting away with what they're doing. Remember, the people who rule the world created all these organizations at the end of 1940. The United Nations, World Health Organization, that was set up to do what it's going to try to do right now. Declare this global pandemic, come in and get your shots. And sure enough, when people start getting shots, the same thing's going to happen now as it did over 100 years ago. We're going to start seeing a bunch of people getting sick and they're going to start dying. The invisible killers are the ones, the bureaucrats that are in these agencies, these bureaucracies that are going to try to force poison into you in the name of health. It doesn't work. There's another version about what happened last century. We got to wake up so it doesn't repeat itself. We have to understand the pandemic was caused, it was created thanks to our ignorance of what health is all about. You got to understand what health is all about. I haven't had a cold or a flu in over 30 years. How do you explain people who are up in Antarctica or North Pole and they're all by themselves, been there for 2 months, and all of a sudden they come down with a cold or a flu? Where'd that germ or bug come from? That virus, how did it make it all the way down there? No, he was there all by himself. And my favorite is almost every damn poison they give you nowadays. What does it say as one of the many symptoms? Flu-like symptoms. Wait a second. Are they putting germs, viruses inside those drugs? Or is a poison a poison is a poison is a poison? That's what a virus is. It's a poison. We got sucked into a system that doesn't work. It is the least effective system. And I know, I've been studying this for a long time, that everything on our planet revolves around us not being healthy. And everything that evolves around that field has to be controlled by the status quo to keep the status quo the status quo. Our doctors don't know anything. There are people, I told you about the SES, these people put in positions. When we go to universities, the people who are at the head of a department, of the medical department, that make sure who they allow to go into certain departments. I guarantee you they hand select the ones that go into the infectious disease department. I guarantee you they hand select the people who go in as a pediatrician. Because these guys got to be really gullible. They got to be a special kind of stupid or a special kind of smart, how you want to say that. I mentioned this the other day in one of my videos. And I say that because I understand how our educational system has been manipulated already. That it rewards those people who just have a good memory. And they don't teach critical thinking skills, so if that's not a gift you were already given, then you can appear pretty smart, make straight A's, be so smart you can become an infectious disease expert, but you couldn't connect two dots if they slapped you upside the face. And you're hand selected because you're a special kind of stupid. And I say that because you're perpetuating a myth that's going to kill millions of people. It did it last century, it's going to do it again. If we don't wise up and take charge. Vaccine denier, vaccine denier. Where's that coming from? Damn right I'm telling it like it is. The vaccines don't work, they never have. I'll put a link down below to a video where I explain this in a little more detail. It's called Vax, the real truth about vaccines. And it's starting to sprinkle on me right now. And I think I'm going to get wet on the way home. I'm going to have to bundle up my camera. I'm going to go ahead and shut this off. But remember, the true invisible killers are the psychopaths who rule the world. And there are secondary psychopaths. And then there are sociopaths. There's 6 types of psychopaths altogether. And we don't want to focus too much attention on them. It's real easy to get sucked into pointing a finger and think we're identifying who's behind the curtain. It's best not to go that direction. It's nice to now know who we can prosecute so they can no longer commit crimes against us. But the ultimate solution is for us to play our role, to realize what Louis Pasteur said on his deathbed. The microbe is nothing, the terrain is everything. And when we figure that out and have a better terrain, we're in for a treat.